Hey, music lovers, welcome to the channel. Thanks so much for dropping by. And yeah, there has been a lot of stuff happening in Kiss world lately. Uh, there's been a lot of developments, and this isn't even, I'm not even talking about the tour, the end of the road tour that has been much anticipated by fans and even people who aren't fans just want to get this shit over with. End of the road tour kicks off tomorrow, January the 31st in Vancouver. And yeah, there's a couple of former members of Kiss that are not likely to make guest appearances anytime soon, if ever. And the reason for that is because of some recent events, I believe. Maybe, it's pretty much a combination of past events and some more recent events. We're talking about Vinnie Vincent and Ace Frehley, who have been making the news lately. Vinnie Vincent, of course, was a member of Kiss for not that long a period of time. Back in the 80s, he was there when Kiss was just getting to the end of their makeup phase. He was a member of the band when they took the makeup off, when they went on MTV and all that stuff. And he filled the void when the band needed a guitar player, and he was there to provide some songwriting too. They got like "I Love It Loud" and "Lick It Up" out of Vinnie Vincent, but Paul Stanley never really cared for him. Vinnie Vincent and a pack of cigarettes have something in common. They both come with a warning label. Anybody who's worked with Vinnie Vincent will tell you that he can be unreliable and a little bit shifty. And so there were all kinds of warnings going around about Vinnie, not only in Kiss, but even afterwards, people that he dealt with the Vinnie Vincent invasion and all of that. And then Vinnie Vincent went away for 20 years. We didn't know where he was. And then he pops up all of a sudden. It was about a year ago, actually, that he shows up at this Kiss Expo in Atlanta. And, we come to find out that he's, got no ill will towards Kiss, that he's thinking about maybe writing a book. He was going to make some appearances with Gene at some of his vault appearances that he had planned, and that he might do some comeback shows. And that sort of, started to develop over the course of 2018. We saw Vinnie actually firm up plans to write a book. He went out with Gene Simmons. And then he actually started to plan some comeback shows for later in the year. And he actually got up on stage at this pre-party for it was the Kiss Kruise #8. And Vinnie got up on stage and he performed a few songs. And it really was an underwhelming experience, because Vinnie Vincent is known as a shredder, as this great guitar player, but he looked like he was kind of scared up on stage, almost looked like his shoes were like bolted to the floor. He didn't move around a whole lot. The biggest thing is that he didn't play lead. I mean, he played lead. That's all that he played. He didn't play any solos. And so why is Vinnie Vincent not doing any solos? Something that he's kind of known for, especially doing long solos. That's one of the things that Paul Stanley did not like about Vinnie Vincent, was that he would just keep going on and on and on. Paul even talked about how in his book that he would have to come on stage, him and Gene would have to walk on stage to kind of give Vinnie the clue that you got to stop, because he didn't seem to know when. And so, Paul Stanley never really cared for Vinnie Vincent. That whole thing with him ended on some bad terms back in the 80s. And even now, Paul's been wary of him. And, Vinnie hasn't been able to really keep his shit straight in terms of his comeback shows. He had a comeback show that was scheduled for Memphis. That got canceled, and they moved it to Nashville, and it was supposed to take place next week, actually, next Friday and Saturday, February 8th and 9th, and that just got canceled. And I knew it was going to happen. I knew that it wasn't going to happen. It just, just by what I'm telling you, Vinnie is unreliable. He had enlisted Carmine Appice and Tony Franklin, who had been in Blue Murder, and they were going to be his backing band. And Carmine even mentioned, I think not too long ago, that they hadn't even practiced yet. I mean, how do you not practice with Vinnie Vincent when your show is next week, knowing that he can't play any solos? And it's just, plus the singer that he had, I forget the guy's name, he hadn't had any contact with Vinnie Vincent. It sounded like everything was just a mess, like there was a communication problem. But I kind of think that Vinnie's not really up to it. I think he was getting in over his head, and the whole thing just kind of imploded. And so the whole Vinnie Vincent comeback show in Nashville has been called off. And so, that's got to piss off a lot of people. There's a lot of people that kind of were, giving of their time to try to help Vinnie. They had faith in him, even though they really shouldn't have, and he blew it. And so, who knows if Vinnie's even going to get another shot, if anybody's going to want to work with him again. His book that, that's within his power. He can do that by himself, possibly. I don't know how good of a writer he is in terms of books, but, he might be able to get a book together. And that might be the only way that he's going to be able to make any money, because I really don't know that anybody has any confidence in working with him again. So anyway, Vinnie is, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that Vinnie is living up to the reputation as being just a fuck up and unreliable, and Paul Stanley wants no part of him. He came out this week and said definitively that he will in no way take part in the upcoming End of the Road tour. That Vinnie Vincent, if he's going to be at the show, it's going to be because he bought a ticket. It's not going to be something where he's invited to play on stage. That would actually be a disaster. And so don't look for Vinnie on the upcoming End of the Road tour. And as far as Ace Frehley goes, wow, there's been a lot of shit going on between Gene and Ace. Ace is a more interesting story. Ace had a very troubled past with Kiss, as you know. Actually, any of the time that Ace was in Kiss, he was a mess. He was fucked up. He was on alcohol, drunk a lot, very unprofessional, and, that just wasn't going to fly in the world of Kiss. Yeah, I know that Paul and Gene are assholes and they're egotistical and all that, but at least they're professional and they want to do the show, and they're all about the business. They're all about putting on a show, whether or not it's a clown show doesn't have any integrity. That doesn't matter. As long as the money comes in, that's what Gene and Paul are all about. Meanwhile, you got, people like Ace, and even Peter too, showing up drunk, acting crazy, trashing hotel rooms. And there's all kinds of stories with those two guys. You can even go look at the Tom Snyder appearance. I mean, it's funny for us, the fans, but, there were just a lot of unprofessional actions surrounding Peter and Ace while they were in Kiss. And, Gene and Paul have just been very, very wary about giving Ace another chance, because he screwed up his first time around. It ended very bitterly back in the 80s. And then when they had the farewell tour back in 2001, they invited Ace and Peter back. That was a disaster. Both guys, alcoholics, unprofessional, whatever you want to call it. And that ended as well. Whether they were fired or they quit, that's something that is between those guys. I don't know exactly, but you can kind of see how one way or the other, it just was not going to work for the band Kiss to have either Ace or Peter a part of it. And so, over the past 13 years, Ace has really turned himself around. He's been sober. And Peter too. Peter has gone through breast cancer. He's turned his life around, and Ace has been, he's been putting out solo albums. I think he's put about 3 of them out over the past number of years. And he's even gotten Gene and Paul to work with him on his solo albums to some extent. On the covers album that Ace did called Origins, Volume 1, Paul was a guest on it. He did a song called Fire and Water, which was an old Free song. And Paul was even in a video for it. And in terms of Gene, Gene wrote a couple of songs for Ace's new solo album called Spaceman, which Gene also named. Gene even let Ace kind of have his solo band because Ace's just wasn't quite cutting it. And so, plus Gene is getting ready to hit the road with Kiss. He's not going to be doing any solo shows. So now Gene's band has got some gigs lined up with Ace. And plus Ace has shown up at some things with Gene for his vault. There's been a lot of love between Ace and Gene and Paul. And I think in some ways Ace, is trying to prove himself to those guys. Like, hey, I'm not the fuck up that you used to know. I can actually show up on time. I can be a professional. And I think that Ace has been kind of hoping that all of this stuff that he's been doing with the both of them would lead him to getting back into Kiss and having a significant role in the upcoming tour. And what's happened lately is Gene and Paul are still kind of trash talking Ace. Gene recently, this past week, he talked about how, as far as Ace goes, he's welcome to make an appearance on this final Kiss tour, but it would more than likely just be to play a song or two, that he didn't think that Ace could play a whole set. And he even said there's like no fucking way that Ace is going to play a whole set, and that he would never be in the band again. It's like he's throwing salt on a wound and kind of like really giving it to Ace. And I think Ace was kind of shattered by that. I think it broke his heart. I mean, I haven't heard those words used, but that's the feeling that I get, because I think that Ace still kind of feels like, look, I helped to make this band. I was a founding member, and this is the end. These are the final shows. I mean, yeah, it's going to be like 3 more years, but let's face it, these guys are getting close to 70. As much as the whole farewell tour thing is like a joke, look, they're just getting old. It can't keep on going on. As much as Gene and Paul would love to keep on watching the dollars flow in, you just can't beat age. And I think that between Paul's vocals giving up on him, and I think Gene is just not able to carry all that weight on him. I mean, we don't talk a lot about that, but he's got to carry all this contraption every single night that he's got to wear. That just gets old and it wears on you. And I think the time really is up for those guys. And Ace knows that this is going to be it. He wants to be a part of it, And I think it broke his heart when he heard Gene talking about how he thought Ace still wasn't really capable of doing a full show, and that he would never be a member of the band again. And, Ace went off. He went off yesterday. He went on Facebook, and he really exploded on Gene. He basically told Gene, he had some words for him about, whether he was fired or not, that kind of stuff. But one of the biggest things that he said about Gene was that Gene groped his wife. Now, I think that's a pretty big accusation to make. Now, of course, we all know that Gene is a womanizer, and he's had more ass than a toilet seat. We know that about Gene, okay? And Gene's even had some women lately make some claims, some sexual kind of suits against him that I don't know that they've really gone anywhere. But Ace said that Gene groped his wife at a recent vault appearance. Now, that's some pretty big news there, And Ace even said that his wife wanted to file a suit against Gene, but that Ace kind of held her back Now, of course, you know why that would have been. I mean, imagine if Ace's wife were to file suit against Gene. What would that mean for Ace in terms of ever getting on stage with them again or working with Gene ever? So that may have been one of the reasons, hey, let's just keep the peace. You know how Gene is, blah, blah, blah. But Ace kind of insinuated that not only did Gene grope her, but that he propositioned her. You know, propositioned her means that there was some kind of sexual talk going on, you know. And so this is some pretty serious stuff. I mean, imagine you're Gene and, you know, especially your Gene's wife, right? Shannon is hearing this. You know, what do you mean? Is this true? Did you, you know, grope Ace's wife? Is there any truth to this? I mean, I'm sure Shannon's heard this stuff a million times by now, but still, I can't imagine that this kind of news, this kind of headline goes over well in Gene's house with his family, whether it's true or not. And I haven't heard from Gene. Gene hasn't said anything yet about this. Of course, like I said, Kiss getting ready tomorrow to launch their tour. I'm sure that Gene is very, very busy doing whatever it is that he's doing. But, you know, Ace basically wants an apology out of Gene, and he wants his job back in Kiss. And he says that if he doesn't get it back, doesn't get an apology, that the gloves are off. And so, you know, it's crazy. I mean, Ace has really been hoping that he could get back into the band. I've heard some crazy stuff coming out of Ace's mouth lately. Stuff like he wants Tommy Thayer, who's the current guitar player, wears Ace's makeup. He wants, you know, Tommy to give up his position to Ace, which is crazy. I mean, Paul and Gene would never fire Tommy at this point and let Ace in. That's not going to happen. Ace has even built it into his contract for his upcoming solo shows that if he gets a call from Gene or Paul that, you know, he can cancel the show and go join Kiss. You know, so he really is hoping that, you know, he can be a part and will do so at the last minute. Will drop everything. He's made it known. And so, you know, like I said, I think Ace was a bit shattered. Like he's been sober. He's been working with Gene and Paul, and this is the thanks that he gets. There's been a lot of shit talk back and forth. And this is where we are right now with Kiss. You know, this is the Kiss world that we know that is getting ready to wrap up here. Well, for the next 3 or so years. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on what's going on. It should be interesting to hear what the response is out of the Kiss camp to Ace's accusations and the crazy stuff that he's saying. And also, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Vinnie Vincent going forward. You know, is anybody going to want to work with him again? Or is he toast? I can definitely see Vinnie is done. No one's going to want to work with him again. Ace is going to do his thing. I don't look for him to join Kiss on their tour. I think that it's very possible. There's been nothing said officially, but I think it could be very possible that Paul and Gene just don't extend an invite to, you know, Ace on this tour. I could see that happening. If they did, it would be at the very, very end, and it would be an over and done kind of thing. But I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you think is going to happen as a result of all this? You know, is it just going to be, is this just a matter of some words back and forth and all is going to be forgotten tomorrow? Or is this really going to set up a rift between Ace and Gene and prevent Ace from being a part of this end of the road thing for good? Make sure you put your comments below. I want to know what you think. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Hit that subscribe button too. And of course, with the Kiss tour kicking off tomorrow, I'll have a set list review coming soon, and there'll be more Kiss action coming your way. And I'll talk to you soon. All right, take care.